Subscribe to The Taste of Justice to learn more stories. Now I want to tell you my story. My name is Jason Barkley. I'm 43 years old, born and raised in Gunnison, Colorado, a quiet town nestled in the shadows of the Rockies. These days, I live just outside of it, in a house I rebuilt with my own hands. You could say I've earned the silence I wake up to. 20 years in the service, most of it in places no one talks about at dinner parties, special operations. Dust, fire, blood. I came home with a couple of scars you can see and a few more you can't, but I made it, and that's more than I can say for a lot of the guys I served with. I used to be a soldier. Now I'm just a man who drinks his coffee at sunrise and watches the light crawl over the mountains. There's a peace to that, the kind that doesn't ask questions. 7 years ago, I met Haley. She worked at a physical therapy clinic I was sent to after I got back. We weren't supposed to last. Her friends said I was too closed off, too rigid, too much former military. But she stayed, or I thought she did. My son, Zach, is 15 now, from my first marriage. His mom left when he was still in diapers, ran off with a guy who sold boats in Arizona. I raised Zach alone for a few years before Haley came into the picture, and she was good with him, warm, funny, patient in ways I never was. I owe her that. We became a family, at least that's what I believed. It started on a Thursday. Late spring, the kind of day when the wind carries the scent of pine sap and gasoline. I was working on the porch railing when a black BMW pulled up to the curb. Out stepped a man in a navy suit, clean-shaven, polished shoes, the kind of guy who doesn't belong in places like this. He introduced himself as Gavin Holt, said he was a business associate of Haley's, something about a health tech startup she was consulting for. He smiled too wide and looked too long, said he had a few documents for her to sign, nothing urgent. She wasn't home, so I offered to take them. He declined, said he'd come back later. That night, Haley didn't mention him. When I brought it up, she paused, just a second too long, then laughed it off. "Oh, right, Gavin. Just some funding paperwork. Totally forgot." That pause stuck with me. After that, things began to shift, almost imperceptibly. Little things, a faint cologne in the air when she got home late, her phone, always face down, conversations with Zach that ended abruptly when I walked into the room. And then there was the way she looked at me. Not afraid, but cautious, like she was watching for something. One night I caught her sitting alone in the living room long after she thought I was asleep. She was crying, quietly, the way people do when they don't want to admit it's real. When I asked the next morning, she said she was just tired. "Hormones," she joked. "Getting older sucks." She didn't know I'd seen the text on her screen. He doesn't suspect a thing. I didn't confront her, not right away. Something told me to wait, to observe. Old habits. You don't live through 2 decades of black ops by rushing in blind. So I watched. I started small, checked the house for bugs, found none, though I did find a brand new burner phone stashed in the garage behind the tool cabinet. Installed 2 hidden cameras, one in the living room clock, one in the air vent in the kitchen. I cloned her phone. I traced calls, and I listened. The more I learned, the less I recognized the life I'd built. Zach, once open and trusting, was distant. Polite, but guarded, like someone had coached him on how to talk to me. He was seeing a therapist now, Haley's idea, to help him process our family dynamic. I asked to meet the guy. She said he was booked solid. I asked again. She changed the subject. By the end of that week, I knew Gavin Holt wasn't just a business associate. He had a military record, sealed, and a string of fake LLCs tied to offshore accounts. And Haley? She was meeting him regularly, always alone, always somewhere public, always dressed like she was going on a date, not a meeting. What were they planning? Why was my son being drawn into it, and why did it feel like I was being erased? I stopped sleeping. Every noise in the house had weight now. Every whisper behind closed doors carried a question mark. I would sit on the edge of the bed at 3 a.m., listening to the wind against the windows, watching Haley's slow, steady breathing beside me. She still curled into my side in her sleep, still reached for me unconsciously like she always had, but it felt rehearsed, like a ritual she didn't believe in anymore. The camera footage confirmed what I already knew but didn't want to admit. There were lies on her tongue, and her silence was hiding more than words. Gavin had been to the house 3 more times, always when I was out, always brief. Once he left something small on the kitchen counter, a flash drive in a red cap. Haley didn't plug it into her laptop right away. She stared at it for a long time like it frightened her. Then, with a trembling hand, she tucked it inside a book jacket and slid it onto a high shelf. She didn't know I saw that. Zach, meanwhile, had changed. At first, I chalked it up to adolescence, the usual mood swings and withdrawal, but this was different. He avoided eye contact, he was guarded, rehearsed, especially when he talked to me. And something about the way he looked at Haley, like he was waiting for her cue, made my stomach turn. One night I caught him sneaking back into the house through the garage at 11:30. He froze when he saw me, eyes wide and guilty. "Where were you?" I asked calmly. He didn't answer. "Zach." I was with Dr. Reed." "Your therapist?" "Yeah." "At 11:30 at night?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. His jaw tightened, and he looked down. "It's not what you think," he said, and walked past me, shoulders hunched like he was carrying something heavy he couldn't name. Dr. Reed. I'd finally found the man. And nothing about him checked out. No medical license, no practice under that name in Colorado. The phone number Haley gave was a voicemail box. I called it from a burner. It rang once, then disconnected. The next morning, I checked the attic and found a router, not mine, rigged to a hidden transceiver. Someone had been siphoning data, watching our house from within. I stood there for a long time, holding it in my hands, feeling like I was standing in a theater set made to look like my life. My home was a lie, my family, a facade. Why? That night I confronted Haley for the first time. Not with rage, with precision. "You know who Gavin really is?" I asked, watching her closely. She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "You've been meeting with him. He's not who he says he is. He's former military. His name isn't even Gavin Holt." Her smile was brittle. "Jason, you're spiraling again." There it was. Again. She'd planted the seed. "You've been distant. You haven't been sleeping. You're making up stories." I stared at her. "You told Zach to lie to me." Her face changed, just for a flicker, something cold and practiced behind the eyes. Then she forced out a small laugh. "You need help," she whispered. "Real help. Maybe you never came home? Not really." She got up and walked to the kitchen, her back stiff, her hand brushing against the edge of the counter where the flash drive had once sat. That's when it hit me. They weren't just trying to push me away. They were building a case. They wanted me declared unstable. They were crafting the narrative. Paranoid vet, declining mental health, dangerous delusions. All they needed was for me to lose it in front of someone official. I wouldn't give them that. Instead, I gathered. I built a secondary network of cameras. Hidden mics. I installed motion-triggered software that sent me clips directly to a secure drive. I tapped into Haley's burner. Her calls with Gavin were brief, coded, but one stood out. "He's close. I don't think he'll hold much longer." "You sure he's off his meds?" "He doesn't have any, but I can make it look like he stopped taking something. I already swapped out the labels." "You'll get what we promised. Just stick to the plan." A few seconds of silence. Then her voice, softer, colder, and Zach. "Kid's useful, as long as he keeps believing it's therapy." She hung up. I sat there for hours after that call, just breathing, not feeling, just existing. They were going to kill me. That's what this was. Not immediately. No, that would be too obvious. They'd break me first. They'd isolate me, discredit me, paint me as paranoid, dangerous. And then, one night, I'd disappear. Suicide, gunshot, maybe even an accidental overdose. Haley would cry. Zach would be confused. Gavin would be gone. The insurance would clear after a month. They thought they were playing the long game. But I'd been trained for long games. I started to act the part. Forgot names. Stumbled mid-sentence. Left the back door unlocked. Snapped at shadows. I let Haley see me stare too long at nothing, fingers twitching. I dropped a wine glass in the kitchen and didn't clean it up. She began logging it, writing in a journal, taking calls outside more often, leaving pamphlets on PTSD and mental decline around the house, half hidden but visible. For Zach to find. But now I had a plan. Because I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to break. I wasn't going to let my son grow up thinking I'd lost my mind. I was going to make them believe they'd won. And then I'd take everything back. They wanted a ghost. Someone who vanished beneath a headline. A troubled veteran who finally cracked. They didn't want to fight, but I've lived through ambushes in Kandahar and black sites no one dares name. I've seen what people do when they think no one's watching, and I know how to disappear without leaving. So I became the version of me they needed. Tired, sloppy, unstable. At night, I'd stand in front of the mirror and rehearse. Glassy eyes, blank face, slurred words. Let Haley find me outside in the cold, muttering to myself. Let her tell Gavin he's slipping. Let her feel safe. While they played their game, I built my own. I contacted people from my past, not through phones, not online. I drove 300 miles to a bait shop off a lake in Wyoming where I knew a man named Marcus Trent still worked under a fake name. He used to run psyops for the agency before they burned him. We didn't hug, we didn't need to. "Still got your mind?" he asked. "Sharp enough." He nodded. "Then let's ruin their day." In 3 days, I had what I needed. Surveillance gear, burner lines, a fake therapist's record I'd plant in Gavin's hidden files, and something more valuable than any weapon: actors. Former operatives turned security consultants who owed favors, the kind of men who could play monsters convincingly, but knew how to stop just short of real violence. I returned home quieter, slower, colder. Haley asked me what was wrong. "I'm just tired," I said. And it was true, the kind of tired that lives in your bones when you've been pretending for too long. I found the location for the confrontation, an old textile mill outside of town. Condemned, technically, forgotten by everyone except local kids with a death wish and the city's rats. I rigged it with motion-triggered lights, directional mics, high-frequency disorientation pulses, and multiple hidden cameras. It was perfect. A theater of truth. Now I just had to lure them in. I planted a seed. Left a printed email from a VA investigator on the kitchen table. It wasn't real, but it looked it, a suggestion that someone had flagged Haley's name in a fraud inquiry. She saw it. She froze, then tore it up and flushed the pieces. That night she called Gavin. Her voice cracked with urgency. "He's getting paranoid. I think he's starting to put things together." "He doesn't matter anymore," Gavin replied. "We move forward. Fast." It worked. 2 days later, I lost it at Zach. Not violently. Just enough. I screamed at him for not rinsing his plate, slapped a glass off the table, then collapsed into the couch, shaking. He looked terrified. Haley held him close and whispered something I couldn't hear. She wanted Zach to believe I was dangerous. I wanted Zach to see. The final act came fast. They told me we were having a family therapy session in town. Haley insisted. Zach said nothing. I agreed. Then I made sure they followed me when I stormed out of the clinic halfway through. I led them to the mill. Haley walked in first, calling my name. Gavin followed, gun under his jacket. I saw the print through the thin wool. Zach came last, unsure, nervous. I had to time it perfectly. Lights flickered on. Screams from above, recorded ones, warped voices, footsteps running, then silence. The door slammed shut behind them. "Jason," Haley's voice cracked. From the catwalk above, I spoke calmly into the mic. "Why don't we talk?" Panic bloomed instantly. What the hell is this? Gavin spun around, reaching for his weapon. Before he could draw, two figures in full tactical gear emerged from the shadows. Not real soldiers. Actors, just as trained. They pinned Gavin fast, not hurting him, just enough force to keep him grounded. One pulled the gun and tossed it across the floor. Haley screamed. Then the voice came through the loudspeakers. Gavin's own voice from a previous call I'd recorded. "You'll get what we promised. Just stick to the plan." More recordings followed, snippets of him and Haley discussing insurance, my instability, timelines. Zach stood frozen, eyes wide, not blinking. "No," Haley whispered. "No, no, no." The final piece was live video from my hidden cameras at home. Her planting pill bottles, writing in her journal, coaching Zach. Then I stepped down from the shadows. No costume. No rage. Just the truth. I faced them. "How long?" I asked Haley. She didn't answer. Was any of it real? Her eyes brimmed with tears, but not the kind that come from guilt. These were survival tears. Reflexive. Empty. "You think this makes you safe?" Gavin growled. "You think anyone will believe this?" "I don't need anyone to believe it," I said. I just needed him to hear it. I turned to Zach. He was crying. "No one's hurting you," I said softly. "Not ever." The silence that followed was heavy. Haley didn't say a word. Gavin just glared. Beaten, but not broken. Sirens in the distance. I'd already sent a full digital package to a federal contact I trusted. Evidence, voice prints, financial trails, everything. Enough to make this more than domestic drama. Enough to get eyes on Gavin's real affiliations. As the police broke down the front entrance of the mill, Gavin screamed something about jurisdiction and immunity. They didn't listen. They took them both. Zach stood beside me, silent, trembling. I didn't touch him. He reached for my hand first. For a while, things were quiet. Gavin and Haley were taken in. The footage we recorded was enough to start a full investigation. Haley cracked first. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe she finally realized Gavin had never seen her as anything more than leverage. She gave them names, dates, bank accounts. What unraveled next wasn't just about me. It was about operations stretching back years, false identities, foreign financing, silent sabotage. Gavin was the tip of something rotting. The government got involved, quietly. They took Gavin, not to prison, but somewhere colder, somewhere where questions are asked slowly and no one gives a damn about human rights. Haley? They didn't know what to do with her. She wasn't just a co-conspirator. She was a witness, a tool, a liar caught in her own delusion that she was in control. She made a deal, one I wasn't allowed to know the terms of, and just like that, she was gone. Zach didn't cry. He didn't scream. He didn't even ask where she went. He just shut down, piece by piece. The way kids do when they realize the adults around them were pretending all along. We moved to a smaller house. No cameras this time. No reinforced doors. Just walls, windows, and the sound of silence that wasn't dangerous anymore. I cooked breakfast every morning. We talked more. Not much, but enough. Sometimes about math class, sometimes about nothing. He started to smile again, but only when he thought I wasn't looking. 6 months passed. Then, one night I came home late from town. The front porch light was out. Odd, since I always left it on. Inside, the living room was empty. Zach's bedroom door was open, untouched. He wasn't home. I felt it before I saw it. A presence, familiar and cold. And then the click of a gun. I turned. She was standing in the kitchen doorway. Hair shorter, eyes darker. Haley. Not the Haley I knew. Not the one who made French toast on Sundays or held my hand when I had nightmares. This one had no softness left. No illusion of love. She didn't even blink when she raised the weapon. "You made it all fall apart," she said. Her voice was hollow, trained. Someone had shaped her into this. "You were just a pawn," I said. "Gavin used you." "No, you used me. You used both of us, the soldier who pretended to be a man. You still think this is about you?" She didn't answer. I stepped forward, slowly, carefully. She cocked the hammer. "Where's Zach?" "Safe, for now." I didn't break eye contact. My heart pounded, but my breathing was steady. I'd been here before, in sand, in snow, in corridors filled with smoke and blood. This was just another battlefield, and she was just another opponent wearing a face I used to love. "You don't have to do this," I said. Her hand trembled. For just a second. A breath. She hesitated. Maybe a flicker of the past pulled at her spine. Maybe she remembered the man I was before all this. Or maybe she saw herself reflected in the steel of the gun and didn't recognize the woman staring back. It didn't matter. She pulled the trigger, but I was already moving. The fight was brutal. Quick, dirty. We crashed through furniture. She slashed with a knife I hadn't seen. I blocked with my forearm, pain flaring like fire, and struck her across the jaw. She fell but didn't stay down. She wasn't fighting like a woman in love. She was fighting like a soldier with orders. She reached for the weapon again. I got there first. The shot echoed through the house. Silence followed. Long, endless. When I turned her over, her eyes were open, but there was no one behind them anymore. Zach found me there minutes later. He'd been hiding, just like I told him to if anything ever went wrong. He didn't cry. He just knelt beside me, looked at Haley's body, and said nothing. I expected him to ask why, but he didn't. Maybe he already knew. A year later, I stood before a courtroom. Not as a defendant, but not exactly free either. I told them everything. Not for justice. Not for mercy. For the truth, they needed to hear it. Zach needed to hear it. I told them about the manipulation, the betrayal, the woman who once loved me turning into a ghost with blood on her hands. I didn't ask them to forgive me. I only asked them to understand. The jury deliberated for hours. In the end, they called it self-defense. I walked out the front doors into daylight that didn't feel warm. Zach was waiting on the steps. Taller now, stronger, his face older than his years. He handed me a coffee, just like I used to do for him when he was little. We didn't speak, we just sat there, two survivors under the same sky. "You did what you had to," he said quietly. I nodded. So did she. He looked at me. "Are we okay now?" "No," I said, "but we will be. Some stories don't end in redemption. They end in choice. I didn't become the monster they wanted. I didn't disappear into anger or revenge. I chose something else. I chose my son, and every morning now I still wake up before the sun. I pour a cup of coffee. I stand by the window. I watch the light spill over the mountains, but I don't watch for threats anymore. I watch for the future, and for the first time in a long time, I believe in it. Life doesn't always warn you when the ground starts to crack beneath your feet. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones holding the shovel. I lost more than I thought I could survive. But I didn't lose myself. That's what matters. No matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how heavy the silence, you hold on to who you are. You stay human. especially when the world tells you not to. If my story meant something to you, if it made you feel or think or even just pause for a second, then hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, stories about real people, surviving unreal situations. And drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me what you felt. Because this isn't the only story. There are hundreds more about love, lies, survival, and the human spirit that refuses to break. I'll see you in the next one.